Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. Now, as part of our initiative, I make it a point to share questions for mains answer writing practice. And today I have a very interesting question from governance actually. So there was this government ad with reference to participative governance, what initiatives that the government is taking for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So for that, I'm sharing it from basically how you'll learn how to connect the mains mains paper from the point of view of news. So this is a very important theme that we are covering today. Okay, so you can get your answers evaluated. All you have to do is very simple. Write your answers with pen and paper and share it with me on my WhatsApp or Telegram. Right, so you make a PDF out of this. You have these apps, everything. So with your camera, take an image, make a PDF file and share it with me on my WhatsApp and Telegram. And my details are there in the description box. Right, so this you can do, and I'll get back to you in 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. I'll get back to you. Right. So first news: Supreme Court sets aside Ashish Mishra's bail in Lakhimpur violence case. Now we all know Lakhimpur violence. There was a Scorpio car which was being driven by a politician's son, whose politician is very powerful, Minister of Home Affairs. So his son. Now, this is important because the Home Minister controls the police department. So his son drove over the protesters or farmers during the farmer agitation that was taking place and then ran away. Police, interestingly, was not able to find the victim, then find the accused, and then there were concerns about investigation. It was expected, right? So that is why I'm saying there is an issue of conflict of interest of the state. Now, ultimately, because of the pressure, media, judiciary also, Supreme Court. So ultimately, the police labeled charges against the accused and took him to the court. And since a very serious crime, so went to the High Court over here. Simple. So it went to the High Court over here. Now, this is a crime of a very serious nature. And yet, what we find is that the High Court provided bail to the accused. And it was done in such a way that this case eventually went to the Supreme Court. So the victims appealed to the Supreme Court. So it went over there. And the Supreme Court had taken a very strong view of the conduct of the judiciary over here. And thereby I say the issue of judicial accountability. What we saw was Supreme Court said that this was done in a very tearing hurry, and what was the need to rush through all of this? That the due process was not followed. The viewpoint of the victims were not taken into consideration. So the victims were denied a chance to participate in the bail proceedings. And beyond this, I would say that this normally bail is given. So when the bail is given, the person is out of the prison, one can be free. But yes, time to time, one has to come to the court also. But in this scenario, the crime is of a very serious nature. Plus, there is an issue of conflict of interest of the state also. This person can also influence the victims, the crime scene, whatever. He has that sort of authority and power. And typically police, even like student protest is also there. They also they will deny, they will appeal against the bail that has been given. But in this case, police did not appeal against it. So this reflects a sad state of affairs, basically. And I would say that it also shows that the Indian state is a soft state. That is, the rule and order, law and order, rule of law is not applied strictly. It can be deformed, it can be reshaped for the convenience of those in the position of power. Therefore, soft state. So they can beat this into any of this for their own convenience. Right. So judicial accountability is a theme that we can see over here. We can see how it can be. The conduct was a bit questionable, actually. Let's not go beyond this. Okay. So conflict of interest of the state. And yes, issues with the criminal justice system can also be seen, be it with reference to the conduct of the police, questionable concerns about the conduct of the judiciary also. Right. So this raises certain concerns with reference to the criminal justice system, and thereby we say that India is a soft state. Now moving on to the next news, wholesale price inflation climbs to 14.55% in March. So what does it mean? That's what is important. So let's do it. So first of all, wholesale price inflation um, is the inflation that is seen at the level of the wholesaler. Now, typically when you buy something, you go to a shop. For example, you want to buy a pen. So you go to the shop. So the shopkeeper, whom we also call as retailer, will provide you a single pen, right? So you will get a pen over here, one pen. But the retailer would buy a pack of 10 pens, 100 pens, whatever, at a concessional rate because he or she is buying it bulk. So they buy it from the wholesaler over here in the bulk. Now, when we say wholesale price inflation, it means the increase in price at the level of wholesaler. So the increase in price that is felt not by the consumer, but by the retailer over here. So 14.55%. Now the same could go with reference to oil also, like Indian oil, the petrol pump is facing an inflation of 14.55%. Whereas we know that the inflation that the consumer is facing, that is the CPI, which we should be concerned about actually, is around 6 to 7%. 6 to 7%. This is the inflation that the RBI is trying to target. But the retailer is facing an inflation of 14.55%. Now, ultimately, he is not going to pay from his own pocket, right? He'll pass on the burden to the consumer. So it is significant in that sense that eventually the inflation is going to increase manifold, more than twice actually. So it's a matter of time where the inflation will increase quite radically. It will increase basically. That is the point over here. Okay. So this thing being done. Now, one more thing that you need to keep in mind that when we refer to the wholesale price index, since from the wholesaler, we only buy goods, so only goods are covered. We don't buy services from the wholesaler. There's no concept as such, right? But when we refer to the CPI, for example, let's say I'm providing my coaching, my fees increases by some, so that will come part of the CPI, right? Or when you go, your son goes to children go to the school, whatever, college, wherever you go. So in that context also, that is services. So services may get expensive, and that is something that is experienced by the consumer. Now the article says that there is broad-based inflation. That means almost every item has become more expensive, but it is led by fuel and power. So these are the things that have become more and more expensive. And the reason, as we know, it is obviously the Ukraine-Russia war that is going on, supply side constraints. And I'll add one more perspective to it, which the article doesn't say, is that many of the things are getting imported. So we are buying things from dollar terms. Dollar itself is becoming very expensive vis-a-vis rupees. So dollar is appreciating, rupees depreciating. So things are getting more expensive. Now from you should also know that WPI is released by which agency? Likewise for this consumer price index. So for CPI, we know it is the National Statistical Office under this ministry. And typically we would also believe this is there, but no, for WPI, it's a different agency. It is Office of the Economic Advisor under the Ministry of Commerce. Here it is not referred to it. It only says Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, which comes under Ministry of Commerce. Now moving on to the next article, participative governance. And as I told you, it's about what the what the government is doing, union government is doing for enhancing participative governance for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So some initiatives are there. So first of all, if people have certain issue, normally with government, we have certain grievances, we have certain issues. So for grievance redressal, it's the scheme of the central government. So for grievance redressal, we have something known as CPI grams. So integrated grievance redressal and monitoring system. So GRAMS. So online grievance redressal system. So anybody has a problem, they can reach out to they can raise it at the online forum, and that should be redressed. So that is a part of good governance. So one is grievance redressal with reference to participative governance. And here it again for your prelims, the Mulaqat program, right? So Mulaqat between the government and those governed. The next is Awam Ki Awaz. A noble initiative whereby Lieutenant Governor addresses citizens of concern, addressing citizens of concern, then aims at disseminating program progressive steps. So making people aware what all things the government is doing for them, making people aware. Then crafting a strategy to draft policies that are reflective of people's aspirations. And one way of doing this is seeking people's feedback in policy making. What are the feedback, what are your opinions, asking the people directly. Or if they have complaints, then using that data to find out that, see, we have to take these corrective measures to improve our capacity. Then one more initiative is here, back to villages. So 12,000 senior officers were deployed in the Gram Panchayats. So senior officials, secretaries, etc. There is a kind of a gulf between the senior officials and the public at large. So them going at the bottom level, at the ground level, meeting them, that will give them greater insight as to what the government needs to do, what corrective things have to be done in that way, right? So this is again good. Okay. So these are certain things that are being done by the government. So we have some initiatives over here. Now let's see how the UPSC asked this question, asked the question on this theme. Okay, I missed this, policy and decision making process. So effectiveness of government systems at various levels and people's participation. So effectiveness and people's participation in the government system are interdependent. They're dependent on each other. Discuss their relationship in the context of India. See, what does the government do? Typically, the government will do governance, and the governance is about public service delivery. Right? Public service delivery for whom? The citizens. The citizens of the residents, it is for them ultimately. So, if the citizens provide their feedback to the government, then the government would know that there are certain problems with the public service delivery. Right? Or let's say if we have the immunization program, but people are not aware of them, then what is the point? The government has right to education, they are making schools, etc. But people don't know that there is already there, something is there. So awareness. So for this, we need awareness of things that the government is doing. We need to have their feedback. So policy and decision-making processes. Senior officers going at the lower, at the ground level, grassroots level, engaging with them, then grievance redressal. So these are certain things that, as you can see right away, the center is doing. So center will not do have something exceptional. There's something that is different for the state. So it's just those things of the center, it is being put at the state level over here. And yes, maybe with the point of view of election also. So that is also there. So citizen engagement, citizen feedback is very, very important. Now, these things apart, there is also one thing that you need to keep in mind, that ultimately the citizens have to participate. If, for example, if Narega is being there and there is a resistance from the people, or immunization program is there is a resistance from the people, or you want universal enrollment or enrollment of the girl child in education, but citizens are not in favor of that, then there will be problem. So people's participation is very, very must. It's very, very important for good governance. Now, this is the aspect that you need to bring over here with examples. So try to use the examples of immunization or the latest schemes of the government, like the Jal Jeevan Mission, anything, right? So do that and do it. This you can find participative governance, just type UPSC next to it, or just type PIB next to it. You'll be able to find it, PIB, PRS, whatever. You'll be able to find the content from here also. Some of the things, by the way, it's already there in your news. Okay. So discuss the relationship in the context of India. This is done, right? I'll be waiting for your answers. So time to change some approach. Actually, I want you people to do more of this active research. That will help you with the better recall also. So it will help you with your prelims as well. So let's see, try it. It will help you. And I'm always there for the feedback. Cryptos and a CBDC are not the same thing. It is not the same thing. So central bank digital currency. I was not able to find it very interesting for mains, but it's just that I wanted to share some concepts. That's all. So you don't have to really dig deep into this for the time being. And by the way, we do have a video on the CBDC, also central bank digital currency. So how are they different? So first of all, your central bank digital currency is like your paper currency. It's only in the digital form. And what is your paper currency? Paper currency, something like 2000 rupees, 100 rupees. It's paper, piece of paper on which some value is given. And there is a promise, there is an assurance given by the state that this paper has a value and it has to be recognized. So it is a legal tender. So per se, the paper has no value. For example, gold has a value. So gold coin, and irrespective, even if value was not written, it still had certain value. So it was intrinsic currency, but this is a fiat currency. It's just paper, but it has a backing of the state. What's the legal tender? So this concept is clear? Okay. So central bank digital currency is also something like that only. It's just that it is in the digital form. It may have eventually the technologies of blockchain and all those things, but it is still not cryptos. How? So cryptocurrency is something that is different. First of all, central bank digital currency is released by the government. Central bank is released by a single entity, right? So government backing, single entity. It is responsible, and the government's job is to ensure that the supply of money, for their macroeconomic goals, they would try to manage the level of supply in the economy. If they feel that more credit is required, they may issue more currency. But the same is not the case with the cryptos. So cryptocurrency like Bitcoins, Dogecoin, and so many other things are there. So they are released by different entities. We don't know who these people are. We don't know who the Bitcoin owner or the founder of the Bitcoin is. We don't know. Satoshi Nakamoto, nobody knows who this person is, but it's a private enterprise. We do not know if that cryptocurrency that you own in the virtual form, I hope you own, because that means you're rich. But yes, so whosoever owns this currency, does it have a value also attached to it? We do not know. Yes, it is that this number of coins, for example, Bitcoins, are limited to 21 million coins only. They will not be more than this. But more and more people are investing. So the value of this currency is increasing. People are also trading in this, that they believe that the currency will go higher up. So they're investing in it. So more people investing, the value increasing, eventually them selling. So that is speculative trading, that you speculate that the currency will increase, the cryptocurrency will increase. But it is not having a backing of the state over here. So there is no value that is attached to it. Sorry, not here. It has no value attached to it, or there is no underlying asset that is attached to it. Normally, the state will have, this is the value that we have, and it is attached to the bullion, gold that is there. But in this case, there is nothing as such. We don't know if it is legitimate also or not. The RBI governor had taken a very strong view of this, and it said that it is a Ponzi scheme. Eventually, it may fail. And this is a cause of concern, because these are the normal currencies are backed by the government. It is a single entity. We have a regulator, but here we do not know. Tomorrow he says, "Oh no, Satoshi Nakamoto, I made a mistake, and this should not be there." What will happen then? People park so much money, eventually it will become zero. So there are legitimate concerns, and it may also lead to concerns of the flight of capital. Rich people are investing in it, even though the government backing is not there, but rich believe that there is a value attached to it. For example, if this tries to relate it to the paintings also, we do not find value in paintings, but some people find some paintings worth crores of rupees. Rich find it. So rich finding value in this, that means it has a value. Right. Now, total value of cryptos have gone upwards of 2 trillion, which is more than the value of gold held globally. So means more and more money is being going over here. Most of it is from the rich people. Bitcoin is very, very expensive, and it is amounting to the issue of black money and the flight of capital and all those things. Right? So this is what this article is basically saying, that it is not the same thing. And it has raised certain other concerns also with reference to cryptos, is that crypto has a problem of double spending. So, I mean, he's from economist. He has his perspectives. Okay. So double spending means, like, for example, when I and you are spending money, I'm giving you money. Let's say I give you 10 rupees. So 10 rupees have gone out of my hand. If I give you hand over cash, 10 rupees have gone, and nobody cares about that. Then you are in the possession of that. Or if I make a UPI payment to you, so money is going out of my bank as done thing. But with cryptocurrency, we have to find out if the money has actually been transacted or changed hands. We do not know this situation over here. If the money has actually been transacted, what if by means of a software, one is still in possession of the currency and gives it to multiple people? So there is the issue of double spending problem. So the regulator till now was not witnessing the situation, but now there is this problem over here, which the RBI would have to look into. And yes, that is what it means, prone to hacking and fraud. Now let's move on to the next article, consensus key for education. So this consensus that is talking about, it is basically with reference to, the national education policy, which was made by the center, so union government, and this is being made. So since education is also the domain of the state governments, respective states, so something to do with culture, protecting the culture, regional aspirations, regional languages, all those things. So initially it was only with the states only, but in 1976 it came under the concurrent list. So that means both union and state can make policies, make rules, whatever they can pass law on this. Okay. Now, what has happened is when the new education policy had come, certain states had an objection to certain things. For example, the three-language formula. Remember the three-language formula? For instance, you're from Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu mother tongue is Tamil. You would also learn English. So it says one more language should be learned. And that one more language is typically Hindi. Likewise, Andhra Pradesh or whichever state. So typically that third language is Hindi. So, and the states believe that it is imposition of Hindi, right? So those things are there. So they're not in consensus is not there. Then about the issue of NEET also, like for the competitive exams, we will have only one examination. That is, for example, medical entrance, so we will have only NEET. So NEET should be mandatory. Tamil Nadu state says, no, we don't want that. They say that, see, this NEET exam is in favor of people who have studied from the CBSE. We have facts. Facts say that it favors CBSE or people who are more affluent, who can spend on coaching, etc. It is favoring them. We want entrance into the medical examination based on the state having that flexibility, maybe on the basis of board marks or whatever. So we are not happy with this system also. So states have a disagreement, and this feels like a imposition over here. In fact, when this was being made, the national education policy, typically it should pass through the Central Advisory Board of Education. So which is chaired by the union education ministers and ministers of education of all the states and some educationists. Right? So union minister plus state ministers plus educationists. But this was not done. Ideally, because if this is done, then that consensus would be formed at the initial level. So once the announcement is made by the parliament, by the center, or whosoever makes it, then there is hardly any scope for forming a consensus. Right? So this wasn't done. This should have been done over here. Now you have this Central Advisory Board of Education. Who chairs it? You have those basic information over here. Right. So now what has happened is the state of Tamil Nadu, now we are at the introduction, the state of education, Tamil Nadu, they say that, see, we should have our own education policy. If center can have, we should also have our own education policy. Fine, very good. Because every state must have their own policy. What are your priorities? You list down for the next 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. List down that these are the goals we want. This is how we are going to achieve it. Right? This is there. But it seems it is coming as a response, as a reaction to the new education policy, which doesn't bode well. But if you look at otherwise, it's a good initiative because every state should ideally have their own education policy, and every state must have, how to reform their education boards, what systems have to be taken into consideration, then what things have to be focused upon in the education sector. So all those things should be taken into account. So in that sense, it is good. But the concern that the author has expressed is that it is a reaction to this, which is not a good thing. Ideal system would be that new education policy is formed. Maybe center says, okay, these are our priorities, and it provides the state the flexibility as to how they want to shape their education system, so that the regional context is also added, because each state has their own regional aspirations. And the way the new NEP is going and the way they're insisting on the NEET examination, etc. So it is favoring the people from the CBSE. So it will undermine, and CBSE means, or they say that, see, your education system should be closer to the CBSE. So that means the regional context. Maybe the state of Tamil Nadu says that these are our national heroes, we need to teach about them, right? So history has to change accordingly, polity has to change accordingly. But if you say, okay, fine, we have to go this way, then the regional flavor, regional context will go, right? So that is the problem. So it should be in such a way that NEP should provide that sort of flexibility that the states can adopt the way they want to, accommodating the regional context. But overall, it should be within the national ambit. Some political news, basically. So we are going to have assembly elections in Gujarat, Himachal, Karnataka, and we have some Prashant Kishore briefs top Congress leaders. I think we all know what it is. Okay. Then Mehbooba calls on Sonia. So we basically, we may see a rainbow coalition where Congress plus regional parties and contest against the BJP. So that event is taking place. Opposition playing vote bank politics, that is their job. That is what the ruling party would also do. BJP bets on women power or to retain Tripura. PM to open a slew of projects in Gujarat. This I feel is important for prelims. So Mauritius PM, WPA chief, WHO, World Health Organization, again, the specialized agency of the UN based out of Geneva. These things you should know now, okay? So we'll also attend event to lay stone for Global Center for Traditional Medicine. So this is coming up in Gujarat. Right. So these are the things. So this is there. So WHO is part of this, and it will focus on traditional medicine. Your homework now is go to the Ministry of Ayush and see which all traditional medicines we have right now. So Ministry of Ayush is for traditional medicines. So find and read about each medical system for prelims. Right. So this is it. Now some update about the Sri Lanka. So we are having this protest going on in Sri Lanka. So we are having this new cabinet that is coming up. We know protest, right? Inflation is there, price rise is there. People are not happy with the government. Now, existing government, we have the members of the same Rajapaksa family who are accused, who the people believe are responsible for the problems that they face right now. So we don't want new cabinet with previous jokers. That is what they are saying over here. And plus, we have in this article, they say that we made certain mistakes, like we didn't go to the IMF. So IMF, you should know their tasks, their objectives, right? So IMF is basically International Monetary Fund based out of Washington, whose job is to, if a country is going to face those instability like Sri Lanka or Pakistan, so they can provide them money so that they can bail them out, so that they don't have this bankruptcy like a situation. Then they can take some corrective measures so that they're out of this trap. So then they didn't go to IMF, because IMF would say that, see, you have to take certain reformative measures, which they felt it will be not be good. Okay. Then the shift towards organic farming, that was done quite suddenly. That was again being responsible for the food inflation that is taking place in Sri Lanka. So chemical fertilizers were not being supplied, that were banned. So all of this happened, which led to the crisis. Now we have Ali Sabri, who's holding talks with the IMF in Washington, DC. And it has also declared itself bankrupt on foreign debt of 50 billion. Right then, so this concludes the session. So thank you for streaming in to IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. I know today is late, but tomorrow it will be on time. So this is it from my side. Bye-bye, take care and all the best.